And welcome to an hour with the candidates. Candidates Corner on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party. Joe Bishop, Henchman, Chairman. As always, tonight we've got John Gabso on the big board. My name is Pat Ford, and I'm the proud chair of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island. There are a few purposes for this show. We want to give the libertarian community an opportunity to meet our incredible selection nationally, almost internationally, if you include Alaska now, right? Of our down ballot candidates. We want to challenge them to incorporate, as we call it here, lunch pail issues, community issues, into the debate through the prism of a libertarian perspective. And finally, as always, of equal importance, we want to create a bond between affiliates nationally so that the fundamental understanding that a candidate running for Maine who may have ballot access ramifications is as important to the party of a small town in Texas, that candidates and ballot issues and ballot access and the challenges within from a small town in California are incredibly meaningful to folks in New England, Florida, the Great Plains states. During the spring, we come into a sort of a period of time where we've got special elections, or in the case of cities in Illinois or Texas, or special elections popping up that give us an opportunity to focus nationally on a candidate who may be running at a time when there's a little bit of a vacuum, a little bit of absence of that national chaos that we all know and love on the 1 year and especially the 2 year, even year cycles. Such a candidacy exists today. Joining us tonight is J.C. Cook. He is running to be the mayor of Athens, Texas. J.C., welcome to Candidates Corner.
Hi, Pat. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I love small town elections. It gives me an opportunity to just geek out over local media, local issues, all the stuff that makes America great, so different. And Texas strikes me as one of those states where every small town has got its own unique character and personality. Where else would I be able to take an opportunity to spend over a day or two running through the pages of one of America's great newspapers, the Athens Daily Review? I'd like folks to know that the Cedar Creek Opry is hosting a monthly jam. That, in fact, this Saturday there is a bridal garage sale taking place, and city workshops occurring at the Kane Center and the police station, as well as, well, you know, the county has approved an agreement for COVID-19 vaccination clinics. I wouldn't have known that, JC, unless I knew you, and I thank you for that opportunity.
Well, I'm happy to provide a service, Pat.
Right. So, but this is what it's all about, and this is why this show exists, because as we've said week after week, and I often talk about Burnsville, Minnesota as one of our leading example, or Hanford, California, communities like that where for the very first time, folks are meeting their first elected libertarian, as we like to say, steward, a member of the community, bringing an ideology, a philosophy, a perspective on life, and of course, a perspective on government to the forefront, for which there is little or no learned experience. They're used to the duopoly. They're used to that sort of bitter partisanship where Team A meets Team B and Team B tries to humiliate Team A, and little or no time is spent on the issues that resonate within that local community. And this is the single biggest difference, that change factor that we've introduced into local politics around the country. Because anywhere I've traveled, and I've traveled extensively in this country, anywhere I've gone to a convention, I've been to a bunch, and I've gotten to know candidates, the single biggest difference, let's step aside from the philosophy for a moment, the single biggest difference between libertarian candidates and the other guys and gals is the fact that when you ask us a question, we answer it. Go figure. And it's easy to do so because we've got a statement of principles. We have an overriding philosophy that, while is exhibited in many different flavors amongst different groups and different belief systems within the libertarian movement, but ultimately, as a party, as an organization, as individuals, as candidates, we revolve around the notion of supporting and fighting for the rights of the ultimate minority, and that's the individual. So, JC, first of all, we always open up with the same question, and there's a little bit of a formula here on this show, but it seems to work. Tell us about your liberty journey, a little bit about your background, and how you came to this moment in time where you're running to be mayor as a libertarian.
Oh, thank you for asking, Pat. I would love to. Okay, so my journey to liberty was definitely an interesting one. I grew up in a house, divided. My parents were divorced, and so my dad's side of the family are mostly Republicans, and my mother's side of the family are mostly Democrats. And I grew up mostly in my mother's house, and so, as you can assume, I began my political journey as a Democrat. And the biggest issue for me that got me into politics at all was war. I'm anti-war. Don't like any of the stuff. It's a great way to make money, but not a great way to do a diplomacy. So I was anti-war all through the Bush years. Let's see, September 11th happened the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. I was in history class when that happened, and I remember initially, like everyone else, thinking, well, yeah, we've got to go to war. And then things start coming out, and we're going to the wrong countries. There obviously wasn't anyone involved with the planes from Afghanistan, but you just throw a dart at the map sometimes and find a place and move from there. So I was anti-war, and then 2008, a fellow by the name of Barack Obama came along, and he promised some wonderful things, hope and change, and I believe the most transparent presidency you've ever seen, is to put it candidly. And so I supported Barack Obama. I was very excited to see an end to the Bush wars. And a funny thing happened. Well, I guess you could call it funny. I don't think it's very funny, but I did just say it was funny. So, hey, he didn't stop those wars. And in fact, he expanded the wars, and the drone strikes on, I think it was, did he bomb 7 countries in his tenure? Yeah. 2016, it was 160 some odd thousand bombs that were dropped in a single year on those countries. And I noticed that a lot of my friends that were anti-war right alongside me through 8 years of George Bush, all of a sudden, they're nowhere to be found. And I'm having conversations with them. And I literally had someone tell me once, well, JC, you just don't understand foreign policy. And I was like, well, I thought I had a pretty good grip of it for 8 years. So at that point, I felt betrayed, and I left. And I remember seeing Gary Johnson run in 2012, and I voted for him. I didn't really pay much attention. I just saw that there was an alternative to both of the old parties, and I took it. And then pardon me. Sorry about that. So I went, I followed the campaign a little bit more in 2016. I was pretty excited. I joined the national party and started getting active in my county party. I met a wonderful, wonderful person who changed my life, to be honest. Desiree Lindsay reached out to me. She was my county chair at the time. She reached out to me, and through Facebook, I just liked the county page, and she was on it. And she invited me to a function, and I got out there and we started talking a little bit about theory, and I was hooked. I ran for vice chair of the county party and was selected, and I've been vice chair of the county party for 4 years. That's the Henderson County Libertarian Party. Yes, the owner of that little stretch of highway. That's ours. So I got into that, and I started reading some more theory, and I recognized that libertarianism within the party is really a spectrum, because you have all sorts of different types of libertarians that come together to rally against the tyrannical state, and that I find very appealing. I never really I talked about running for office a little bit in the past, but never really cared too much to step up and do it. For one thing, I was nervous, and not so much anymore. Obviously, maybe a little nervous, but do what we do. I went down to vote in 2020, though. I voted early, and pardon me. One thing I noticed when I cast my ballot, which I voted for, obviously the best candidate in the field, which is Vermin Supreme. I'm a big fan of Vermin Supreme, and I do work with that wonderful gentleman. So shameless plug. But what I noticed was that at the county and local levels in my town, there wasn't a single incumbent that had any opposition. Every single one of them was running unopposed. And that's sad. It's really sad, because if you look around where I live, I mean, it's a beautiful town. You know, we've got nice trees and a couple of really good parks, plenty to eat. There are jobs to speak of, but very little representation. And I just thought that was a shame. As a matter of fact, the fellow who is mayor now, his name is Monty Montgomery. He's a nice guy. I actually got to meet him whenever we drew for a position on the ballot. And he seemed like a nice enough guy. I don't have anything against him that I know of anyway, but he won the election in a town of 12,600 roughly people. He won the election with 736 votes total, which is that's less than 10% of the population that's cared enough to cast a vote on something that very, very much affects their lives. And I thought somebody needed to run just to give them an option. So I found out that I didn't even know that there wasn't going to be another candidate for mayor. I ran assuming that there probably wouldn't be, and I was right. It's a 2-person race now. So people in my town have a choice, albeit it's this choice, but I think I'm pretty okay.
No, it is critical that as libertarians that we take opportunities where they sometimes sit as, I won't call them low-hanging fruit, because there's a tremendous amount of work involved in campaigning, the type of sacrifice that you make of your time, from your work, from your family, your friends, even from your regular, I'll call it libertarian activism, is tremendous. It's an incredible invasion of someone's space in life. You often are forced to make disclosures that, sometimes are uncomfortable for people who aren't used to public life. In terms of patriotism, obviously as libertarians, we have an interesting perspective in it, but I will say this, that short of serving in the defense of your nation, running for public office is in fact the most supportive, caring thing that you can do for your community, really than just about anything, because you're presenting people with an opportunity and a choice. You're presenting the party with an opportunity to present our philosophy and our perspective on issues which are clearly very, very different from the establishment. Tell us about your town, if you will. What's the industry? How do people earn a living? About the schools, and it's interesting. Through this show, we came on the air before COVID. Really ran right into COVID, and now we're hopefully in some perspective getting ready to leave COVID. And the reason why that's been a challenge for the show is because clearly the type of issues that are important to a community a year and a half ago are vastly different than they are now.
Oh, yes.
So tell us about your town.
Okay, so the thing about Athens is I actually grew up, it's funny, I grew up in a town right next to Athens called Eustis, Texas. All right, it's a little town of 632 people. So needless to say, for a hometown, it's not much of anything. But, Athens is right next door. And if you want anything, groceries or entertainment or anything like that, you have to go either to Athens or Gun Barrel City. And as a kid, we always went to Athens. Athens had a 4-screen movie theater that they still have. And God help it, I hope that it survives this. But because I'm pulling for you, Cinema 4. There's a great little place when I was a kid over there called the Kane Center, where we would all go swim. They had a nice indoor swimming pool, and sadly they've gone under and nothing has been done with the building. And that's another one of the things that I would like to work with the people of Athens to change. But it's a nice place. I grew up doing theater there. There's a little place. When I was a kid, it was called Athens Little Theater, run by a really sweet guy who just passed away. His name's Dennis Gilmore. He was a pretty major influence on my early life. And it's now called the Henderson County Performing Arts Center. So when things start ramping up again, you should go out there and check them out. They're wonderful, wonderful people. It's a great little place. Industry-wise, there's some manufacturing jobs, metal works, and there's a place called Dallas Manufacturing that I believe they make mostly dog beds and things like that. And excuse me, workers of Dallas Manufacturing, if I am selling you short, because I certainly don't intend to. We have a Walmart just like everybody else. Most of the little chain stores, a lot of minimal wage jobs. I don't want to say exclusively minimum, because there are a lot of people that make, just a hair over that. But, before the state comes in and takes their cut of your work. What a great motto. Sorry. Another thing, by the way, is if I'm elected mayor, that sucker right there is going to be put to a vote, because I just don't know. I mean, hamburgers are great. I love them. I eat them on occasion, many occasions, but I think we do a little bit better. We'll see. Sorry for whoever wrote that, and I don't mean to insult you. I truly don't.
No worries, no worries. So with all of that, if you're graduating from the local high school and perhaps you're attending the local college, what type of, and you want to stay local, because it seems like a remark. I mean, I'm reading about things, for example, that, you've got, let's see if I pronounce this right. You've got Tawakoni. Is that a lake or reservoir? And
Lake Tawakoni.
Tawakoni, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Am I the tourist or what? But he just landed a 72 pounder. I haven't landed 72 pounds of fish in my life total.
I probably haven't either.
So you've got this, remarkable community. What's keeping people staying in the community? How are they employed, and what's the major industry there?
Well, I would have to say it's probably majority. No, it's a pretty good mix, though. Like I said, you've got the manufacturing. There are a lot of people who drive trucks for a living and commute, because there are jobs in Tyler, Texas, which is just down the road, and Dallas, Texas, just down the other road. Yeah, a lot of people commute, I imagine. Also, like I said, a whole lot of service workers, people that work in restaurants and things like that, in various positions. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good mix. I just think that it'd be nice if we could inspire a few more local things. I mean, there's nothing wrong with chain restaurants. I mean, they keep people fed, good for them. But you've got there are a few places in town that are just authentically Athens, Texas. And one of them, by the way, shameless plug number 2 of the day, is Ochoa's Mexican restaurant, which I've been eating there since I was a kid. It's family owned. The Ochoa family are good people. They have a couple of different locations around that area, but the one in Athens is definitely the place to go. I usually eat there about once a week.
So what is the local business climate like? What are taxes like? How hard is it to start a business in Athens, Texas?
Well, I guess that really just depends on capital. I'm honestly I'm not too familiar with what is required to start a business.
Mhm.
That's definitely one of the things that I'm going to have to learn, that if I run, or if I am elected to the position of mayor. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that there's permitting involved, as there always seems to be. Maybe it's a little bit easier if you have a membership at the old country club, and you rub your elbows with the right people. There's a whole lot of elbow rubbing that goes on sometimes in Athens, Texas. And, I kind of want to bring some more elbows into the mix. Just some perfectly good elbows. They're nice elbows. They probably don't have the same, oh gosh, total brain fart, for lack of a term. Yeah, I would like to see more businesses started up by local people, especially lower income people, and anything that I can do to help that will definitely be
Is
amazing.
is the downtown really the center of the community? Is there an outlying business community? What's the heart and soul
All
of
right,
Athens, Texas?
so there's the square where the courthouse is. If you go down 19 towards Palestine, Texas, you will find the hospital and quite a few restaurants and little shops, nice little places. The Ship Shop, shameless plug number 3, wonderful place if you need to mail a package or buy little knickknacks. They're good people. They help me all the time. And yes, absolutely, Des. Athens does have a pretty thriving art scene. There's a nice brewery downtown as well. It's the Athens Brewery. Yeah, Athens Brewery. I don't generally drink, so it's I'm no expert, but I hear that it's really good, and I know that they have good food. If you go down towards on was it 31 towards Tyler? Is it 31 towards Tyler? Yeah, if you go down 31 towards Tyler, then you will find the Walmart and Brookshire's, not to be confused with Brookshire's Brothers. A couple of little insurance places and things like that. City Hall's down that way, and yeah. So I mean, it's decently spread out.
How about schools? What kind of shape are the school systems in, particularly given all the stresses being put on them by COVID? And how, and you give me a snapshot too of how the town has reacted to COVID in terms of shutdowns, lockdowns,
Well,
in-person, remote schooling. What's happened there?
I'll tell you. Our governor, I was told, put out a mask mandate across the state. But if you were in my town, you probably wouldn't know that, because I don't think a single person, other than the handful of people that already would have worn a mask, cared at all. The people who did the most work in this case were the businesses that put forward the the mandates for their personal businesses, which, I mean, that did some good, but there were definitely a lot of people, because of how politicized the whole thing has been, that just threw fits about it, and it is what it is. The schools are, I believe, getting back to normal, which means I guess we're going to get back to standardized testing and just kind of throwing the whole education thing away and hoping that something sticks from that 4-letter choice piece of paper. Now, I went to Athens for a year when I was in high school, which was a nice experience, I suppose. I met some pretty good people I'm still friends with today. TVCC, I don't believe, has TVCC started having classes yet? Yeah, okay, so TVCC is now having classes again, so that's a wonderful thing. There's still been a lot of online participation, which is, that's cool to have that option, because if it were me personally, I wouldn't set foot in that school, because I have yet to receive my my stick in the old arm here.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the voters concerned about right now, and what do you think is going to be the issues that they focus on in the mayoral election? I mean, the mayoral election is a big deal, and clearly community services, and there's each community's got its own sort of unique perspective. What's important to the voters of Athens, Texas?
Well, I'm going to guess that one thing that will always be an issue for the voters of Texas would be work and wages, and I think that those things are going to kick back off very soon. I mean, most places I think are pretty much back to doing whatever they want to. I think that a big issue will probably still be COVID-19, because I mean, it is still an issue, even though some people may not like to pretend like it's an issue. I think that what happened with the winter storm, when we had our little East Texas blizzard, that we ended up being 5 minutes away from a complete collapse of the Texas grid, which from my understanding is that it would have left the whole state without power for months, except for those little bits in the panhandle that go off of the other grid. Lucky them. It was pretty bad. There was, I think, winterizing the grid and making sure that we have reliable electricity would probably be a pretty big issue for people around. But honestly, I think that my biggest issue that I'm running on for my campaign is that I want to decentralize the office of mayor. Mm-hmm. Like I really want to do something to bring this community together, because they really need it. It's not as tight knit as it should be, and I think that that's a problem that can be easily solved. So my idea is to essentially create a database so that every single person in the city of Athens will have an equal vote on every decision that the mayor makes. Because as a libertarian, I am not in favor of government hierarchy, no matter how small. And I think that upon creating this database, I'll be able to encourage more active participation from the people who are most greatly affected by the policies of the town. That's the plan anyway. And
so is there a town council that serves alongside the mayor?
There is a city council, yes, and I have yet to meet them, but I know them by reputation.
Mm-hmm. And what typically is their makeup and their attitude towards city government? You're talking about decentralizing a lot of the decision process. How well do you think they would work with that? And what type of inroads would you have to make with the city council in order to get that sort of perspective?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think that the council's going to like it very much, if I'm being completely honest. And I don't want to say that I don't care, because that would be a really stupid thing to say. But what's more important to me is making sure that people who are traditionally underrepresented in this town have representation. And if they don't want to do anything official, I'll put it to an online poll and create a special group on Facebook, if I have to, for every person in the town, and they can go and cast a vote as to what I do. But I don't believe in making decisions for other people. I think that they should be more involved, and I'd really like to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Is there? I know everything. I call it the Zoomification of civil politics. We're dealing with where I live in Rhode Island, where you've got no less than 10 major pieces of gun legislation being put up at our state house, and individuals in the state are given a whopping 1 minute to a minute and a half worth of testimony via an electronic interface, as opposed to what should really happen, which is a series of public meetings, reaching out to people and giving them an opportunity to weigh in. Do you get good attendance at city council meetings now? Is there, or is it your plan to decentralize? Is that a reaction to people feeling disconnected from their municipal government?
That is exactly the purpose of this. You know, there are. All right, I love Athens. I love it. It's a great town, for the record. But this town is still classically, like, stereotypically divided by a set of railroad tracks. Okay, and those tracks serve to separate the really haves from the really don't haves.
Right.
And
Okay.
I worry about that, because you would think that people, and you can see the difference in maintenance of roads across that other side of the tracks there, that it's ridiculous. And I want to take care of those things. I want to give these people equity in their city, because if they have equity in their city, then this city will flourish. We can absolutely make that happen. And all it takes is some mutual aid on the ground, people coming together and trying to make a difference. It's your home. If you're not going anywhere, why not do something about it? I mean, I don't have any experience in running a city. I don't want to have any experience running a city. That's why decentralization is so important to me. Like, for me, I would cast an equal vote with everyone else, and I'll just be the one that signs the document or punches the card or whatever they need me to do. But I want to do it for everyone. I don't want to make this, these people have the right last name, so I'm going to prioritize them over this guy who works at Long John Silver's. I just don't think, I can't do it. It's just a personal thing. My ethics and morals do not mix with that. So
what about policing in a small town like Athens? I mean, how, we've all got, for those of us from the, for example, I grew up in the Northeast. So I'm from New Jersey. I'm a walking cliche, right? We have this image of, if you're a certain age, you remember Mayberry RFD as far as small towns in Texas. Of course, we also, the Last Picture Show, right? That was another movie about a small town in Texas. So we operate up here in the Northeast as if we know everything, and clearly we don't. And as if we're somehow the ruling class, which clearly we shouldn't be. So in a town like Texas, in a small town in Texas, do you face the same type of policing challenges as you do? As you've mentioned, there's stratification, if you will, the community. You've got the, and I'm old enough to remember the term "the other side of the tracks." That's sort of a boomer term, right? But because that was, for many communities around America, that was very much a defining benchmark. And
right.
So what is policing like in your part of Texas in general? And do you face those same challenges that we seem to face around the country with racial issues and stop and frisk and aggressive policing of particular communities and virtually a hands off? And as we like to say here on my little video effort, in the halls of justice, very often justice can be found in the halls. Talk to me about community justice in Athens.
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, we do not have Mayberry. I wish that I could say that we had Barney, Fife, and Andy running around, bringing us like Aunt Bee's pies or whatever, but we don't have that. And in fact, Athens has 3 police departments, because we have the Department of Transportation with the state troopers right down the road. We have the Henderson County Courthouse, which means we have the Henderson County Sheriff's Department in town as well. And we have the Athens Police Department. So we are definitely represented. To be honest, I have to assume that they probably spend a lot of time on that other side of the tracks. Because I'll be honest, most of the time, if I'm driving around in Athens, anywhere around the businesses, I don't ever see a police officer. I really don't. I know that just like most small towns in Texas, we survive on ticketing, lots and lots of ticketing, you know, for Schrodinger's quota that both exists and doesn't exist at the same time, because nobody has a quota, but, you know, we got to make sure we write a certain number of tickets.
I've driven the length. I've driven pretty much the length of Route 10. I know all about driving while on fill in the blanks on Route 10.
Right.
So yeah, you don't have to convince me. I've had some near misses with the Greater Texas law enforcement community.
Sure.
Yeah. But does that impact racial relations in your community like it does in so many others?
Oh, I mean, it has to. I can't imagine that it wouldn't. Now, both fortunately and unfortunately, it's hard for me to be able to speak about it because of my privilege. You know, I don't have to worry about those sort of things, and probably until after this video goes viral, and then I'm gonna have to get a new car. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, you know, that the patrols that go up and down the streets to make sure that, you know, the wrong people aren't standing in the wrong place. Mostly what the police, best I can tell, at least from what I see of the sheriff's department, is that it's all about busting poor people with methamphetamine. There's a lot of methamphetamine in Henderson County, which that's not an Athens-centric thing. It's a small town, not a lot of opportunity thing. So, you know, and that is what it is. I personally, I believe in restorative justice. So I don't think that people find rehabilitation inside of a jail cell. That's another thing that I want to do with my campaign, is I want to set up volunteer restorative justice panels as sort of an alternative to punitive justice, so that people. Right. What's that?
No, absolutely. I mean, talk to me about restorative justice, because that particularly for our communities that have that divisiveness based on income, that can be a very powerful concept. Explain that to folks, what restorative justice is.
So the idea is basically, at least I know that in the state of Texas, it costs a little over $20,000 per person per year to house someone in, you know, the criminal justice system. And of course, you know, once you go in, your life is pretty much over. Your advancement is, you know, nil. You take what jobs you can get, or, you know, you end up in the revolving door of the system. Mm-hmm. So the idea with restorative justice panel would be a focus on making victims whole. And so basically anything, I would push that for anything that is not a violent crime would be given the option to go before this panel. They would have the opportunity to face the person that they have wronged and have conversations, real conversations between each other. They can discuss why they did the thing that they did, and the victim can discuss how that made them feel and how that affected their life in a negative way. And, you know, it's about building bridges and giving people options to redeem themselves. And I think that that's very important, because, you know, when you get a paper trail, and it's really hard to compete in this world. And I believe in forgiveness. I believe in redemption. I know about redemption because I have, in my younger days, I wasn't always this wonderful person that you see before you. You know, I've had my ups and downs and dealt with real world things.
When we were young and foolish, JC, we were young and foolish. And so
now I'm just foolish.
No, absolutely. You know, and now it's interesting because we've only got a couple of minutes left, but we've touched on something here. The notion of restorative justice working in a state that has become synonymous with state-sponsored execution. That has got to be an interesting challenge. Do Texans in your community, the folks that you know in general, do they have the warm embrace for the death penalty that the men who run in Texas seem to have?
Well, there are definitely some good old boys that they think it's just keen when a murderer gets what's coming to him, right?
Yeah.
I am not a big fan of that. I think that human lives have value, and that the idea of killing people who kill people because killing people is bad is so backwards, like it's the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are a lot more people I think that there are a lot more people who are against it. I mean, it seems like a really, really red state. It's very red, but it's not as red as it once was, and they know that.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is to get people on the local level active, because we can do some really incredible things with this town just on a local level. We don't have to sit around and wait for somebody at the top to wave their little magic wand, or maybe pull their head out of the lobbyists, back door, and have a look around in our direction. We can do things ourselves, and community is incredibly powerful, and I'd like to see more of it.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. This is the part where we talk about shameless self-promotion. That's what we enjoy here. Who's involved with your election? What type of structure you have? How are you going in the age of COVID? And I understand Texas has relaxed or eliminated most of their restrictions. Are you going to fall back into an old style door-to-door, door-knock campaign? And how can folks find out more about your campaign? And of course, if they'd like to donate to help you. Okay.
So, first of all, I pretty much run my own campaign. I officially have my dog listed as my campaign manager and primary speechwriter. And he's very good. He's a good boy. But Desiree Lindsay is my treasurer. She's really wonderful. This really lovely lady that I intend to marry as soon as all this nonsense is over is my editor. She's very good at that too. And I mostly am running an online campaign due to, still dealing with COVID. And I have some people in my life that are very important to me that are immunocompromised. And so I do not take chances. I believe there's an open mic in this neat little place called Ben Wheeler that I'm planning on attending next week to see if I can, talk to a few people. I would like to start door knocking when it comes closer to the election in April. And as far as donations go, this is going to come as a complete shock. But I have decided that I will not be accepting donations for this campaign. Okay. I think that it's wonderful that people would offer to donate money to me. I think that it's really great. But for what I'm trying to do, I don't really think that it's necessary for the infrastructure that I have, and especially with as quick of a turnaround as it is. I mean, I have a month and 1 week, and having dealt with all of the issues of trying to set up a campaign bank account from working on the Vermin Supreme campaign, I can say that I would just like to not deal with the headache and run a nice little social media campaign. I've got some good people that are from this town that are sharing my content left and right. And I'm very proud of this opportunity. I really am.
We talked about the Facebook page, and John, John Gapso, if you could throw that up there one more time. How do you feel? What's the pulse of the community? How many folks do you think you're going to need to get to vote for you to get a win going?
Well, I can tell you this, considering that the election was won with 730 some odd votes last time, it would be nice to be able to say that I only need about 800 to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I have entered this campaign has motivated my opponent to start raising money. And given that some of my ideas are definitely not status quo ideas, I imagine that there's probably going to be quite a turnout, which means that I will be successful in that no matter how I win, well, how I do in the race. I feel like at best, probably going to need about 3,000 people to come out. I think 3,000 is a good, safe number for a city of 12,000 that had such a low turnout. I'd love to see it. But the way I look at it ultimately is if I look at my next ballot and I see people running for city council and people running for sheriff and, all of the local and county positions, that's a victory to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to inspire people to get out there. Just regular people
Right.
people like me. I don't have a degree in mayorology. I don't. I know that sounds surprising because they probably offer that at TVCC as a class. But yeah, I want to do something good for people. And I think this is my opportunity. And who knows if all goes according to plan, maybe I run for re-election, and if not, I will run next time with a slate of city council members, and we'll go from there. That's
Excellent.
the only goal.
No, excellent. I'm thrilled that you're running. When folks see that empty slot where someone is able to just have the temerity to just assume that they are the only solution to their community's issues and challenges. That breeds an arrogance and irresponsibility, a disconnect with the voters, the citizens, the individuals living there. Whatever phrase you want, people in that community deserve a choice. People in that community deserve a discussion. The very fact that you're running is a political act unto itself, which will breed competition, a line of questioning, perhaps a sharper eye to the choices available. And in doing so, you've helped your community already by simply giving people an opportunity to make a choice. We talk nationally as libertarians about the duopoly. And I wonder if enough, and this is just my perspective, and I'd love your final thoughts on this. The word disenfranchise is usually tossed around by the two major parties as a function of either racial politics, ethnic politics, occasionally religious politics. And they are desperate to make it easier for people to vote in elections, which ultimately I support. I don't have the big problem that the Trump community does with that. I just don't. Everybody should vote. But if in fact you're limited because of the structure of the election, because of government, because of private self-dealing, if in fact you're limited not in your voting, but your ability to have a choice in voting, that is just as evil. That is disenfranchisement. Again, we make the older people jokes, but I was around during Soviet workers' paradise days, Leonid Brezhnev, where there'd be 100 opposition candidates, but they wouldn't get a single vote.
Right.
Are we that far from that in theory here in the United States, particularly in these small towns and communities around America? Just a few days ago, we had the folks from Pennsylvania on, and they talked about the Moulton maneuver and just a tremendous effort geared at going after the boards, the town councils, the auditors, all of those positions that make the sausage of government. And I mean sausage. So your presence in the race, hopefully a win in the race, but you've shown the light. And I hope that folks learn from your example and dive in. And over time, they'll build up the experience, the expertise, the following, a more comprehensive exposure of the philosophy, so that they understand that libertarians aren't looking to, we're not looking for power. As we like to say, we're running for the highest office in the land, so that when once elected, we can leave everyone the hell alone, right? That's what you and I agree on. And that's what ultimately I believe all libertarians agree on, despite these various flavors and philosophies, subgroups and caucuses that are being formed.
Sure.
Ultimately, we seek to make, as you pointed out, we want to eliminate the term governance, insert the word stewardship, and make all decisions local.
Absolutely.
Whether it be policing, mayoralties, bonds, school buildings, all this stuff. And of course, my roads, right?
Oh, of course.
Well, I listen, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I wish, please let us know how you're doing. Send us the updates, and and if folks are out there in the community and they want to make some phone calls on your behalf or help in some shape or form, then please do. We've only got a handful of electoral opportunities, coming in the next couple of months, where we can all turn out nationally to spotlight these elections and to introduce people to what it's like to be stewarded, not governed by a libertarian. So, JC, best of luck. And again, thanks for joining us tonight.
Pat, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's great to see you again.
All right, buddy. First, programming note. This Monday evening, we are going to have the second week of what's called the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight, run under, if you will, the guidance of Valerie Sarwak and the Libertarian Affiliate Support Committee, a production of the Libertarian Party and LPTV. The difference being, we're going to be focusing on issues surrounding each affiliate. Joining us will be Paul Robbins of the Alaskan Libertarian Party. He'll be talking about something called the Libertarian Gold Rush. We'll have some posts up over that this weekend, but we invite you to join us Monday night at 9:00 and focus a little bit on what's happening in Alaska and their efforts to grow their affiliates and their efforts to create excitement and understanding and exposure for the libertarian philosophy and the libertarian movement. As always, all of these shows reside in perpetuity. That means permanently, in my word, on the Libertarian Party Facebook page. So if you want to dial back a few weeks and see what happened in Pennsylvania, if you want to talk about Illinois, any one of these wonderful folks that have been on, whether as candidates or affiliates over the last, year, take a sneak back. We're going to be talking about some different ways to organize all this data so it's a little bit more accessible. But there are so many lessons, so many perspectives, so many opportunities to be shared amongst all of us as a national movement, as a political party, as an organization, as a philosophy, that we can learn from every one of us that have been on the show. I know I have. I believe I'm a better libertarian, a stronger person for having met all of these wonderful folks. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. You've been listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Candidates Corner on Libertarian Party Television. A production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop, Henchman Chair. As always, a big thanks to John Gapso on the big board. He's the one that not only makes it work, but throws up all these great maps, statistics, newspaper articles. You know it. Again, giving you a sense of the community that I don't think that if J.C. Cook hadn't run, I don't know that I'd know what I know about that part of Texas today. I've been your host, Pat Ford. It is a privilege to spend time with all of you. And I look forward to seeing you Monday evening. Have a wonderful weekend. Good night.